Pete, good to see you. I apologize, but I still don't have my voice back. It's been a struggle.
Bill, you haven't had a voice for 2 weeks. What's going on? I mean, don't you have some of that like spray that singers used to use? You know, spray it in their throat so they could talk.
The problem really is uh, Maximum Metallica on Sirius XM. I get in the car, I turn it up as loud as I can go. I scream Metallica lyrics, which are good, wholesome lyrics, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
And they are. And I just can't get the voice back because I can't stop listening to the Metallica, Pete.
So you're like a headbanger.
Oh, I mean, within reason. At my age, you got to watch the neck a little bit. A lot of these guys that were headbanging back in the 80s, they've had neck surgeries. And so you do have to stretch properly. You know, you gotta watch everything you're doing, but you get that music pumping through your veins. There's nothing you can't accomplish, Pete. Nothing.
Yep. So, I mean, it's kind of like, working out. I mean, do you do these exercises before you get in the car?
Well, first you have to warm up the throat, which I obviously have not done a good job of.
Right.
You have to you have to kind of get your vocal cords ready. You've got to stretch, and and then when you get in the car, you've got to make sure you're following all safety protocols of driving an automobile. But within reason, one can have a near concert experience inside their own car if you've got a nice sound system.
Well, that is true. Do you ever just go out and sit in the driveway? If Lori's mad at you, I know that never happens, but I mean, so I mean, do you ever like go out in the car and just kind of jam out?
Well, that's why God invented AirPods. And I can't, oh, mine are over there on the credenza over there in the corner. You can't see them, but AirPods have a nice, clear, you got some good bass that pumps through there, and some loud music. I mean, you feel like you're right there in the concert. But yeah, I've been known to go sit in the backyard and by the pool and drown out the world whenever the world needs to be drowned out.
Well, that's good. Well, we've got a really good podcast here today, and we don't want to drown out our guest. I mean, this is an important message, and fits right in tune with the Equus goals and core values. And I think we should bring our guest in, Bill.
I agree with you. So while we get him into the studio and loaded up into his special place, let's let Jana play the music, and then we'll have him back on the other side. So welcome everybody. Pete, finish it for me so they can hear it.
To the Equus Retirement Solutions podcast. Yeah, that's right.
Well, Pete, I am excited about today's guest. I'm going to let you do the bulk of the talking because the more I talk, the worse this gets, which um, my wife likes. She doesn't have to hear me, what's this Amazon charge? What's that Amazon charge? But we've got a guest that we wanted to bring on board today, Pete, because this guy is doing everything you're supposed to be doing when it comes to walking and talking the business. And you and I witnessed some of this firsthand in a couple of Ubers in Phoenix during our Retirement Solutions University recently. And we said, we got to get this guy on the podcast and let him talk about how he talks the business. Because in doing so, we're finding recruits, we're finding clients, we're finding everything. So let's get him in here, Pete, and hear what he's got to say. Welcome, everybody, Mr. Frank Davis.
Hey, thanks, Bill Martin, Pete Lee. Appreciate you having me on the show today.
It's good to have you, buddy.
Hey, great to be here.
All right, I'm going to yield to Pete for all the questions, and I'll chime in as needed.
Okay, well, we were in Phoenix, Arizona, all the way from Tacoma, and we took some some Uber rides, to get to dinner and whatnot. And Bill and I got Bill got the Waymo, not the Uber, a Waymo, with like
Well, we
real
did both.
driver.
Yeah, we did both.
Yeah, so I videoed that and I sent it home, and yeah, both my wife and my son said, "What are you, crazy? I wouldn't do that." But in any event, the answer is yes, I am crazy. But we did it. We got there. But the most entertaining part of it and the lessons to be learned came from Mr. Frank Davis, who, when we did have drivers in the Uber, I mean, he wasn't recruiting like nobody. He was recruiting the Uber drivers. And, Frank, it was amazing, to listen to you communicate with the one Uber driver that we had when we went to dinner one night. So I guess my first question is, I think you did a really great job of doing it. I don't know if you've heard back from that individual. Maybe you can share that. But, obviously Equus is, the main focus is building a team, recruiting, bringing more people into the opportunity that we have here. And then, of course, we want to drive revenue too. But, what's your mindset, when you approach the day, like when you get up in the morning? I know you like to go to the gym first thing, but what are you thinking about? How do you mentally get ready for the day and the recruiting efforts, et cetera?
Well, mentally, for me, I wake up in the morning with a positive mindset because that's the first thing that's going to be, inevitable. Whatever you're thinking of first on your mind is going to carry you throughout the whole day. And my first mindset is, when I get up in the morning, I lost my train of thought there quickly away. But I have affirmations I say every morning. Is first thing I get up and I say those every morning. And before I even step my foot out of bed, when I open my eyes, I say these things to myself, give myself a positive reinforcement.
Could you share some of those?
Yes, I can. I got it written down. I'm glad I do. My first thing I see in the morning, wake up in the morning, my first mindset is that I'm the master of my fate. So with that being said, I mean, whatever I think of, whatever I say, whatever I do, I control all those avenues in what I do and what I go through.
All right, so that's great. So you're master of your fate. So your fate would be, tied to what your goals are, right? I mean, those are
Right.
things that you can mentally fixate on, and it could be your mantra. But what are your goals? I mean, is building in the forefront, personal production a big part of that, referring cases to specialists, whether they be annuity specialists or small business owners or whatever. So what are your goals here at Equus?
Well, my goal is definitely always building because in the midst of building, you never know when you're going to have the slow, your down periods. And building helps offset that because when you're having like an oscilloscope, when you're having your up moments, heck, your team might have their down moments, but all of a sudden when they're having their up moments, you have a down moment, but things kind of balance out as when it comes to production. Unless you do production, you focus on a production so your team has an example to follow and go by. Say, hey, if he can do it, I can do it as well too. As far as referring other business to other entities, whatever, one of the main aspects I feel like has been a great, tremendous help for me is when I attend the RSUs, when I attend the conferences, because all these build every time when I go to an event to help me in the process of what I do.
Yeah, so let's, I mean, I think that's great. I apologize that didn't silence all my stuff. When we took that trip in the Uber, to dinner that night, our driver was kind of chatty right at the beginning. He talked, but man, you kind of took over the conversation, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but you were relentless. I mean, he was telling us that he had been working on, building his own business, with things that you're familiar with. I know you go to the gym like every day, and so he's been working on, protein shakes, protein bars, and all that other stuff. And as you said, that market's pretty saturated. But, what was your mindset in approaching him on the opportunity that we have here at Equus? And what
Well,
did you say, I guess, do you have anything that you say to people, just out of the blue?
Well, the main thing is I'm interviewing them. How serious are they about their business? And talking with him, he is extremely serious. He said he basically been working up to his deal, or working his business in the health food industry. He had developed a certain type of supplement to give you energy or protein, whatever, which a lot of companies are out there. And I say it's oversaturated, it's well out there that's saturated. And I looked at for him, he has not looked at a few key aspects of building his business, for one. And I want to know how serious he was. He seemed to be very serious about it, which I took all that in mind. And I asked him some key things about, have you looked at your tax advantages as a business? Have you looked at how much you're going to pay? Have you looked at the true planning nature of everything? And I conveyed with him, I said, I know you're going to have, you say you got an attorney, you've got your tax accountant. But the thing in life you have to look at is, and we use a company to help us with these strategies, we have to look at exit strategies because he's exiting from whatever area he was going from and going to a new area. And so that was a big factor I look at. And we work with the Pantheon group to do that for the exit strategies because a lot of people leave key things out. And what I looked at for him was, and I mentioned the fact about taxes. I said, if you looked at your taxes, you're going to be paying for the future because day one, when you're in business, if you haven't thought about this, the end of the year can make you cry. You might be out of business in 6 months.
And I
Yeah.
remember you saying, you're going to wish when those dark days come, you're going to wish you talked to Frank.
I did say that.
And you,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, and I let him know his dark days will be coming sooner than later because he hasn't planned and haven't made the right preparations for that. I said, look, we can help you do that. I mean, I didn't say, hey, give me your number. I didn't beg him for anything. I said, hey, I can do this for you right now. We'll just basically a calm conversation with him. And the end result of giving me all the things he needs to look at, which he hasn't thought about, literally, and you all can attest that when we got out the car, I didn't take my phone out. The guy was saying, hey, I got to get out the car with you. I'll help you with your, whatever you got your bags. And he was asking me for my number because I gave him several key things that he needed to take a look at that he wasn't looking at.
Well, I think that's great. And for the listeners who, may not know what the Pantheon Group is, it's a group that works with high net worth individuals and business owners and helps them with their tax planning, using permanent life insurance where it makes sense, in a lot of situations. And they're a partner firm with Equus Financial and Retirement Solutions in particular. So, what you're doing is basically bird dogging, if you will, for lack of a better term. I mean, you're looking for good prospects for the Pantheon Group, and basically you split the business with them. So just wanted to let our listeners know that. So, so that was, one pretty good prospect. I'm not sure if you heard anything back from him or not, but then at dinner, we were approached by a waitress who was pretty darn good in sales. I mean, this waitress was really good. Okay, so there are 4 of us there, and actually 5 of us were there, but she came right up to the table and basically said, do you guys want any appetizers? And we're all saying, really, no, we don't want any. Well, bottom line is, we ordered 4 appetizers. We don't even know what they were because she just said, trust me, I'm going to take care of you guys. And lo and behold, we ended up ordering 4 appetizers, and they were all very good. So she did a great job. But you approached her, trying to recruit her. And, so how did that go, Frank?
Well, I spoke to her, I talked with her, and people might say, well, why would you bring her up or why would you talk about her? Because sometimes you have to know when to back away or know that a person knows exactly what they want to do. So for that particular young lady, when I talked with her, we were just having a casual conversation. I use a formula and I talked to, it's called FORM, Family, Occupation, Recreation, and Money. So within the midst of the conversation, we talked about family. Her family was basically the restaurant, the owners, and people she works with. Occupation, she said she loved her job. I asked her was without hesitation. Recreation, she clearly let me know I go on trips, I go on vacations, I have a great time, I am great. Then when it came to the money, she said, "Oh, I'm very much compensated well." I was like, "Wow." And you don't come across a lot of people that are truly definite in where they're at for her. And she let me know I've been here for, I think she's over 10 years. It's great. I work when I want to. I love a lot of overtime. They pay me well. And she was hardcore on staying where she was at. And I asked her, "Have you thought about doing anything different?" She said, "Oh, no." She said, "I love what I do, and this is a place for me." So at that point, I knew that, hey, the best thing we could count on for the night, Pete and Bill, was having great service. And she gave us great service, great attention.
She did. Yeah. So sometimes you just say, hey, obviously, none of, we fail more than we win, in the prospecting world, not only for business, but for new recruits. But I want to go back to that form, FORM, family, occupation, recreation, money. What are some good questions that you ask, uh, how do you ask somebody about their family? How do you ask, what questions do you use for occupation, recreation, and money?
Well, when it comes to family, I call this person, hey, I ask them, are they married? Or are they single? Do they have kids? Those are some of the key, initial questions. And then I'll dig a little further with like the second layer down. I said, well, if you're married, are you able to spend enough time with them, whatever? Is it what you want, And there's sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no. Now, if they say no, I'm not spending enough time with my wife, I say, well, hey, I might have something for you. That leads into other areas. Now, as you notice, I said form, family, occupation, recreation, and money. Now, money, I'll say this up front, money usually comes out in the first three areas, but I let them lead themselves to that. So go back to family again. I ask a question about family. I ask them, are they married? They spend enough time with their wife or spouse. If they have children, do you spend enough time with them? Would you like to do more? Is there things you would like to be doing? Things along those lines. Or if you're single, what would you like to do or that you haven't done already as it relates to the family part of it? Now, under occupation, and this is a huge one because the majority of America these days, they work a job because they have to do what they have to do to make a living. And the key thing I ask everybody, I always say, do you enjoy your job? And the lady at the restaurant, of course, she clearly answered like spontaneously, and you heard it for yourself. She was like immediate with an answer. I love my job. I was like, wow. It was hard for me to think of a comeback or to overcome that. And I said, well, she's pretty tough there. And then that's when after I asked about the occupational things, whatever, I asked her, I got a little deeper into the conversation. I said, well, what do you love about your job? The people, the owners, the people I get to work with, my environment, meeting new people like you guys. So she broke me down in the questioning of me questioning her. Then we got to recreation for her. I said, what do you do to have fun? Oh, I go on trips, I go on vacations. I said, if you're going to place, I go everywhere I want to go. I mean, she was literally answering the question back to me before I could even ask her the question. And then we got to money. So are you compensated well, the type of thing, whatever? Oh, it's great. They take care of me. I'm sitting there like, okay, annual raise, that kind of thing, whatever. She was like, oh, yeah, it's great here. You couldn't offer me nothing greater than what I have. And so for that particular individual, I went through the whole gamut and I was like, you know what? I can't bother it.
Yeah, yeah. But the point is, you have a system to
Right.
do, to talk to people that, whether it's in a grocery store, a restaurant, most waiters, are always looking for something else to do. Many of them, are trying to break into, acting or, creating an app, or I'm working on this, but this is how I make money. So you have a system, the family, occupation, recreation, money, with good questions to kind of lead to where you want. So when you find somebody, let's say she said, well, I'm not making as much as I want to. I'm not able to travel as much as I'd like to. How would you, try to reel that person in?
So a long question like that, I would ask her, well, I'll throw a number out there. Usually, I don't throw a big number out there. I know there's some large numbers we make per week with our top producers, and we know how those high numbers can be. So the number I'll throw out there, I said, and usually with an extra $2,000 a month, would that be a game changer for you and your household? Nine times out of 10, people are going to say, yes, that would be great if I could make an extra $2,000. And I said, well, if I could show you a way to do that, and usually they're going to say, yes, what do I need to do?
And then what do you say?
I said, well, great, let's get together. I'll get their information from them. And once I get their information, and the key thing I say, I get their information because if you wait for them to call you, you're never going to hear from them. They're going to forget. They're going to lose the information. They'll be like, I never heard from that individual. Well, of course you're not going to hear from them because you didn't take the initiative to get their information.
So Frank, do you let them know that we're in financial services, or do you not shed any light on that at all, or how do you approach that?
What I do is so I'm not just throwing my guts up on the account, whoever. If they ask the question, usually I'll lead them into, I'll just give them an elevator speech. Would you like the opportunity to help people or help families, that kind of thing? Or that's what we do. And I'll say, give me your name and number. I'll get back to you.
Okay, so it's just that simple.
Right.
And then so let's say you call and they say, "Oh yeah, Frank, I remember." What do you do from there?
Now, from that point, I'll break some things down to them. I say, hey, we are a financial service. We help families. We help them in their worst time of we help them in their time of need. And that's the basic course I give them. I said, are you interested in going further and finding what the steps are? And they say yes or no. They say yes. I'll say, here's our framework, how we do things. This is a very highly regulated industry. And what we do is we'll have you take a study course, which will now explain to them how much the course costs, about the average time frame, and what they can look at doing, how soon they can do business.
Do you give them any indication on what they might be able to make in the first 6 months, 12 months?
I try to keep it simple back to the first initial conversation, so it's not like overwhelming to them. And I always remind us that you did say you could use an extra $2,000 a month. And so, well, yeah. Now, when they ask the question, I mean, is there a way for me to make more? Well, usually I'll throw it in later. I say, you have the opportunity, you can double that or triple that in time. But right now, it's focused on the two right now, get you there. And then we work on moving to a higher level beyond that point. They're excited.
Well, I got to tell you, you're not at all afraid to ask questions to total strangers. Um, you know, what would you say to, other agents here at Equus that might say, yeah, I'd rather just get leads. I don't want to deal with my warm market. What would you say to them?
Well, I mean, just the thing is though, you can get leads and you can message your warm market. You can do both, but the key thing is though, you basically just had to have conversation with people and just show them how much you care, whether it be family, friends, whoever. Because the thing they're looking at is you're just trying to make a sell from me. Show them how much you care. The caring factor goes a long way because sometimes in talking with them, they may just need a conversation with somebody just to know that, hey, at least I got somebody I can talk to. It may not happen today. It might happen a month down the road, 2 months down the road. Say, hey, remember you talked to me about what you were doing, how you help families? How could I do that? Because the only thing you're doing is every person you talk to, you're planting seeds. It's like growing a garden. I mean, I always remember the story of the bamboo tree, which I learned about a long time ago. And people think that, oh, if I'm not doing well, I'm doing bad, I'm doing worse, I'm doing horrible. But not so. It takes for a bamboo tree to start sprouting, I want to say, if I remember correctly, I think it's like 11 years. And when they start growing, they grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's tremendous. So Frank, with the people on your team, I guess you start everybody off with, mortgage protection or whatever, but how do you introduce the retirement solution, since this is a retirement solutions podcast, to talk about, um, annuities, permanent life insurance. I know you've referred some really good cases with great potential to the Pantheon group. How do you personally steer people toward that, or find people that are good prospects there, and how do you share that with your team?
What? Like I said, I use myself an example. One of my recent ones, because we were actually at the RSU, had to leave from a part of the meeting there. One of my candidate was actually a Chick-fil-A franchisee owner, and just wanted to make sure he had everything he needed to have. Now, as luck would have it, I usually get the tougher case for somebody to work, even make an appointment. But this guy was so well qualified. I said, you never know, he just may need something. But when he first talked to me, he said something along the lines of, yes, I've had some experience like working for the IRS. I used to be an IRS auditor. Because I mentioned the fact of, have you thought about paying half as the taxes you pay, or maybe possibly zero on your taxes? But after I got that out, he let me know, hey, I used to be an IRS auditor. people will literally say things to deter you or to get rid of you, but you have to have a strong mindset and answer the questions as quick as they answer to you. Because the minute you hesitate and you're unsure of what you're going to do, they will tell you no. I mean, I answered so quickly when he objected with me, he had no choice. Like, you know what? I better talk to him. I might need something. He said yes. That was all in a matter of 5 minutes.
So I mean, is this somebody that you knew, or were you getting, a Chick-fil-A sandwich?
I happen to know the owner. I met him one day. He was out, looking at, different other restaurants or businesses. We were both at a grand opening at I want to say like Steak Escape. He had his wife with him. He was, getting something to eat beside, at the regular restaurant being a Chick-fil-A. And he gave me his card back then. I've always talked with him or known him since that time, and just I feel like it was a good opportunity to present something to him.
So you met him, cold. You were just at a function where he was, and then how did you approach him? I mean, did you say, "Hey, you look like a Chick-fil-A guy. What are you doing over here?" or what?
Yep. So I talked about, said, hey, so you mean you don't eat everything at Chick-fil-A? I said, no, I gotta have a break sometimes. Okay, great. And we talked a bit. I mean, it's do a dealing with my other business I have, and I led with that. But he gave me his card, and he said, call me anytime if you need anything, whatever. Very personable guy, real friendly. And let me say this about anybody deals with somebody that has high ethics and moral values. This guy literally is so down to earth, as busy as he is, and quite wealthy, I must say, too, as well, from doing what he does. But he's a very humble guy. People that are humble, they're nice and everything, whatever, there's something to be said about that.
A lot to be said about that.
Um, I wanted to say two things real fast while I before I completely lose my voice here. First of all, that first Uber driver where you were talking about the protein supplement guy that you were talking to about saving on taxes and everything.
Right.
You also worked a little bit in there at the beginning about debt elimination, I remember, and
Oh, yeah.
then you kind of switched over to tax savings because I don't think he really bit on the debt elimination. But what I loved about that, Pete, was how Frank just didn't give up. Like the guy kind of blew him off a little bit in the beginning, and a lot of us would have been like, "All right, I'm just going to be quiet," and Frank didn't stop. Frank just was like, "I'm going to find an angle here." He looks at every person as an opportunity. Um, and I love that no quit that you had in the car that day. But then, Pete, what you missed was on our way from the meeting to the Phoenix airport, we had another Uber driver. And Frank started talking to her about debt elimination. Frank, recap that conversation for Pete and for our audience because she was quite enthusiastic about what you were talking about.
Oh, definitely. So that particular the ride that P missed out on, that one, we talked to a young lady, got to know her, asked her how she was doing, everything, and asked her was it a full-time or part-time job for her. She immediately let us know because we joked around with her. I think the conversation really came up because she had a crack in her windshield, and she mentioned like, well, I have an Audi at home, a nicer car. And we were like, you're not gonna bring the Audi out for us to have a ride to the airport? So, oh no. And what kind of car was it? A Prius?
Um, it was might have been a Kia or something. It was a
Yeah, right. It was Kia, right.
small car or whatever it was. Yeah.
It was a Kia. So we got a ride in a Kia to the airport. And we discussed about the windshield. I kind of left her, and then we got into more about because obviously she let us know it was a part-time job for her, it makes the extra money. Then we got into like she was like feeling a little down, needed someone to talk to anyway about her present job situation. So in the beginning, when talking with her, I thought it was gonna be like more of a recruit opportunity. But before I laid into the um the questioning of the form there, I said, let me talk to her just a little bit more. I said, well, what do you do as a chef? Now, one thing about conversation with people I've learned, do not degrade anybody because had I called her a cook, the ride would not have gone well. I immediately they refer her to her as a chef. Now, she wants to downgrade herself, that's her prerogative, but always I tell anybody, take the higher road with somebody. So with that being said, I talked with her, she said she was a chef. The great thing about her was she had a unique way how she prepared food. She used marijuana in preparing food certain ways, and she had a great taste to it. It was a great opportunity, and as far as making different palatable servings for people when it comes to food. She said the area wasn't quite ready for her yet because we're in Chandler, Arizona, a smaller area from Phoenix or Tucson, larger cities, but since she's working on some things for, better future and everything. So as we talked further, I mentioned to her about, have you thought about expanding your business? So now expanding her business always works in the lines of retirement solutions. Yeah, not really. She thought about it. She just wants to work for somebody for right now and look at other avenues on things. And then she worked on avenues of things. She talked about that. She mentioned the fact of, I jumped in. I thought of something clever to say to her. I said, well, I guess you got a huge kitchen at home because you love to cook. She said, as a matter of fact, I do. I just bought a new house. So now the bells go off. This brought up the fact of, I could have asked about mortgage protection, but I got to go with something a little bit more different, more diverse. So that's when I brought up mortgage protection. Only after she said, yeah, I got my house. The question I asked her was, and knowing the question, we have to know this. I asked her how many years was her house financed for. She told me, and a lot of you guys are going to say, Frank, you heard the wrong thing. No, I heard it correctly. Bill was there. He'll attest to it. She said she had a mortgage for 40 years. Yes, everyone, there's a 40-year mortgage out there. Believe it. And those are primary candidates if you want to do a debt elimination on somebody. But anyway, we got into that. I literally just gave her like nibbles and bits to lead her along when it comes to debt elimination. I never told her you're paying for your house twice because she doesn't realize this yet. I just simply said to her, would you like to pay your house off in half the amount of time to have a finance for? She immediately said yes. And I said, well, we need to talk to you and your husband. And then she also mentioned the fact of, can you do it on a weekend? I said, not a problem. Because he works weekends, we can make that happen. But the key thing for a debt elimination, he just role played into a certain situation where it was, it was a trigger, something was going to benefit her. That was the biggest thing. What did she get out of it? She would get out paying her house off a lot sooner. So she was very interested in giving me her phone number because I've heard a lot of situations where people say, like, they won't give me their number. They didn't want to do it. We have to be able to confer to people, talk to them, make them want what we have. That's the big. I didn't have a problem getting anybody's number through all these that I asked for or wanted to give it to. Now, the one lady at the restaurant, no, I didn't ask for her because she did not want to do anything else. It was a waste of time to ask for it.
Yeah, I mean, you ask them questions that they'd be crazy to say no to. Like, do you have an exit strategy? No, I don't. Well, definitely he wants one. Do you want to pay off your house in half the time or less? Yeah, sure as heck do. So, and that's the want, obviously, and then you can get the phone number. I want to kind of circle back to two things that kind of struck me in that ride to the airport conversation that you had. One, she cooks with marijuana.
Yes,
She's got some happy family members then.
very happy.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So that's one thing. And then when I got an Uber ride from the airport to the hotel, the guy's windshield was cracked. And when I went from the meeting back to the airport, the gal's windshield was cracked. And then you just said hers was cracked. It's got to be like the heat. And, in the evening, obviously, when the sun goes down, it gets really cold. And then it gets really hot. I don't know. I mean, but that's 3 out of like, I don't know, 6 ride shares where the windshields were cracked. That's nuts.
Why I used to live in Arizona, the thing is the heat there. The best thing to do is you have to remember to simply just crack your windows. I lived there for, I think, a year or so. Not one time that I suffered having a cracked windshield.
Yeah, I mean that's wild. They must roll the windows up and the heat just,
It'll swelter it bad. It'll make it crack.
Yeah,
It'll cook in there. It'll cook.
it'll
Well,
cook.
Pete, what my takeaway from watching Frank in these 2 interactions was, and I told him when we got to the airport and I walked straight through security because I don't pack like a girl. Frank had this big suitcase and he had to go check it. So I was very aggravated with him. But that meant we couldn't share an Uber at the next destination, which was Dallas. and I really wanted to see him work that Uber driver. But I said, I ain't waiting on you. I want to get to bed. And so I got out of there, and he had to wait for his suitcase. But we got through security, and we're sitting at our gate waiting to go to fly from Phoenix to Dallas. And and I said, Frank, one of the great things you're doing is when you can tell that somebody's interested, like this lady was with the 40-year mortgage. You didn't throw up everything that you know onto her. You kept it very high level. You were giving her a few little hooks and things to anticipate that next meeting, but you weren't just telling her everything that you knew right there on the spot. You knew you had to get some interest to get her to the next meeting, and then let your specialist reel the fish in the boat. And so that was the other thing that I thought was really great is you kept it simple and you didn't throw up too much information on her, um, right out of the gate when you could tell there was a little bit of interest. That's something, Pete, a lot of us insurance agents do when somebody seems like they got interest. We don't shut up. We just go, 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 go until we've told them too much. So good job on that also, Frank, the way that you responded to her without giving her too much.
Now, in the past, I can say in the very beginning, so somebody think like, well, he made it seem so easy. No, I used to be just as bad as anybody else. I would tell them everything I know. All of a sudden, I'm like, they won't call me back. What's wrong? I told them everything. And I'd be like, oh, that was a problem. They didn't need me anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing to come back for. Well,
So,
Frank,
Frank,
I don't have any other questions. I think you've laid out, how to recruit strangers really well. And, I
yes.
think you've done a great job here today. And I know a lot of agents are going to learn from it and appreciate you for it.
Not now. Just so somebody won't think like, well, that's like how they do that, or I mean, literally. And I haven't reviewed some of the books I got, but just on a side note, when I used to be an Air Force recruiter, they did pay for me to attend a course. I want to say every recruiter that went to the course, I want to say it was like every recruiter they did in an entire Air Force. They spent like $76,000 per recruiter to go to this training. And then we have these books we reviewed to go through and go and do as well too. But it really gives an extensive overview as far as questioning techniques, questions you can answer. I mean, but it gives you a lot of different examples on different areas of people and where they are in their life to really just reel somebody in.
Frank, let's end with where we should have began. For those that don't know you yet, tell us a little bit about your background coming to Equus and how long have you been with Equus and whose team are you a part of?
I've been with Equus. I'm going on my third year with Equus. I'm on Cal Keter's team, part of Barnes Marketing Group. Um, I got my license actually 32, 33 years ago. And actually, I was working doing part-time, of course, then. And I got it while I was active duty in the military. And of course, I've had some in and out times like a lot of people have and everything. But one thing I can truly say, being a part of Equus has been a tremendous help in learning. I got a serious learning curve. I'm still overcoming that daily because I do forget a lot, but I'm learning a lot as well too. Because you constantly go to me like, "Didn't we just go over this last week?" I'm like, "Yeah, we did," but I know I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm getting older, but I'm doing better about remembering things better. So,
You're not the only one, Frank. It's
and I do have a background. Um, like I said, I used to be an Air Force recruiter. I did that for 4 years. I did in the past. I had a securities license. I either had a Series 6 and 63 license. I did sell mutual funds for a little while, but the only reason that I didn't keep that was because at the time, talking to my father because he wasn't sure in those early years how to keep my license and still be able to not retake the test. And while I became a recruiter, he said, "Well, son, there's nothing, you got to retake the test." Because I couldn't keep the business going in on a regular basis and keep writing in order to maintain and keep my license. So I did let that go.
I'll let mine go too. It's okay. We're in the 6 and 63 rejects club. It's okay. But hey, great job. Tell everybody before we wrap. So where do you reside these days? Where's home?
I live in Jackson, Tennessee. I'm about an hour from Memphis, and I'm like 2 hours from Nashville. And just FYI, Nashville is my home state. I was born in, well, home city. I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee.
So are you a Titans fan?
I am a Titans fan now.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Thanks for joining us today, Frank. A lot of fun. Good. There's so much people could learn from what you said. And if they could have watched you in action, my only regret is I didn't grab out the iPhone and just sit there and film the back and forth between you, because it was a clinic. It was an absolute clinic on how to talk to a stranger and not and be bold while being respectful and not give up. You did a great job, and I know you keep having those types of conversations. You will find some interesting cases doing that. So, thanks, Frank. Appreciate you being here today, buddy.
Hey, thank you all, and thanks for all you do, Bill, Pete, Lee.
All right. Thank you, Frank. And thank you all for listening to the Retirement Solutions Podcast. And we will see you all next week, same time, same place. Until then, take care.